In my last video, I talked about how broken games don't always stay broken and the conundrum that it presents for reviewers and the industry in general. However, that is merely a small aspect to why the entire system of gaming and game reviews is broken. This time, I want to focus on review embargoes and how they really end up hurting the consumer. So what is a review embargo? When a publisher releases a game, they give review copies out to certain publications beforehand, usually a few weeks before the release date to minimize any leaks. This way the reviewers have a chance to publish their reviews on the release date, or sometimes before that way the consumers who plan on purchasing the game know what they're getting in for before they actually pull the trigger. However, this creates a double-edged sword for the publisher, so they oftentimes forbid the publication of reviews until a certain time, usually the day of the release. On one hand, the early reviews can easily be a boon to sales. A game that reviews well is going to make people want to throw their money at the store to get a copy. When a reviewer has time to sit back and actually enjoy the game, they're more likely to write a thorough review that doesn't skimp on any details or rush past anything a consumer may find important. It also gets the consumer pumped for the game they may have not been anticipating otherwise. On the other hand, however, from the publisher's perspective, this can potentially be damaging. A bad review can easily derail any hype and can result in a loss of sales. A game that reviews poorly before or after launch is essentially doomed, especially thanks to Metacritic. Even if the game's issues are resolved down the line, the damage is already done. This is the publisher's biggest fear, and it leads to embargoes on those reviews. However, an embargo on reviews serves no one in the long run, so let's break it down again and see how it affects everyone involved. First, the game reviewers. Reviewers held to an embargo are put in an almost impossible situation, especially when it involves a bad game. They are given essentially two choices, neither of them being ideal. First, they can break the embargo and warn the consumers. This would seem like it's part of their duty as a game's reviewer, however, it means burning the bridge with a publisher, especially with a bad review. The publisher is very unlikely to send review copies ever again. The other option would be to follow the embargo, which ends up hurting the consumer and leading to distrust. So there's really no good option for a reviewer faced with an embargo. The reviewers are very unlikely to forget this position that the publishers have put them in, and very unlikely to forgive as well. Now the publishers. The publishers actually end up hurting themselves in the long run without even realizing it. The publishers put embargoes in place in their mind to avoid the damage that would come from poor reviews before launch. However, all it ends up doing is just creating an environment full of distrust with the blame rightfully placed on them. The reviewers who are put in that tough situation are unlikely to forget that feeling the next time they review a game from that publisher, regardless if that game is actually good or not. In this day and age where almost anyone involved in gaming has access to the internet, they're likely to find out about an embargo. The reviewers' poor feelings about the publishers are likely to be absorbed by the consumer. If the game ends up being poor, it leaves a bad taste in their mouth, and the internet really never forgets. Which leaves us with the party most affected, the consumer. Consumers are the ones at the end of the day throwing down their hard-earned money on the game. They expect a competent product. A review is a way for a consumer to decide if that game is truly worth the money, especially in this culture of pre-orders. A pre-order is done in complete blind faith that the game will be worth it one day. A consumer has the right to know if a game is broken or just not that fun to play before buying it. Some stores have a cancellation policy for pre-orders, especially when promotional items are involved. Again, this only serves to leave a bad taste in the mouth of the consumer, which they're not likely to forget. So really, what is the solution in this case? Embargoes aren't always bad. They do serve a purpose, mostly to prevent the leaks of information. Unfortunately, oftentimes the reason behind their implementation is a bit more nefarious. The best solution, if a game does have an embargo, would be for the embargo to be lifted at least a few days before the release. As it stands, some embargoes aren't lifted until the day of, and sometimes that means late in the day after consumers already have copies. Unfortunately, this is something that will never happen due to the fear of the publishers. The biggest issue is if a game is poorly received at launch or before, it has little chance of succeeding. That Metacritic score never goes away and doesn't change, even if it should. This is something where unfortunately there is really no good practical solution. The reviewers are stuck between a rock and a hard place. The publishers are in a tough spot, and the consumers end up getting screwed. The issue is the publishers put themselves in this spot by overworking developers and not giving them enough time to craft a proper working game, but that's an issue for another day. As of now, the whole system is still a broken mess, and this is simply just a part of it. But it can be fixed. There is a way. The first step is bringing these issues to light. Hey guys, once again, thank you so much for watching these videos. If you like what you saw, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. As always, I love hearing from you. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and leave them down below. What do you think of game review embargoes? Do you think that they are really hurting the system, or are they really just no big deal, and does the publisher really have the right to control this?